Oh, welcome to another edition of Scots and Socks. And you can't see us, but hopefully you can hear us. We don't know why we can't get on stage. That is weird. Let's try something
There you
else.
go,
There we go.
Scotty. There we are. We were up on
It's
stage.
very strange. I don't know why that background's not working, but there we go. We're here.
There you go.
Wow.
So
How
it wasn't a
terrible.
technical error. It was a Scotty error.
No, I don't know what's going on there. We use that background all the time. So, yeah. Okay, here we are. My name's Scott, and he's Scott, and welcome back to another edition of Scots and Socks. So this week is Men's Health Week.
Thanks, Kenneth.
Yeah. Mr. Carson, you want to kick us off with your thoughts on Men's Health Week?
Do we really care?
Yeah.
I was just throwing it out there. Do we really care? Like, what are we really doing around men's health? What are we doing to support each other? What are we doing, to look after each other? Or are we just in the grind, just doing life?
Mhm.
I think it's pretty interesting at the minute. Last night, Scotty, we sat with a table of very good men working through life, and we had quite a profound conversation. So as you work out the background.
Thank you. Yes. Oh, I'm listening actively.
No, I understand that. Actively listening, but concentrating on something else. But I love it, right? Because isn't that what's going on a bit at the minute with men? Yeah. We're concentrating on something else. We're not focused on our well-being. We're not focused on making each other stronger. It's interesting at the moment. Men's Health Week. What have you done as a man this week for you?
Well, here's what I find interesting. There are a lot of causes and things that happen around that are gender-based. Through the year, through the calendar. But what I find, and through those, not to, highlight women per se, but through those particular events or weeks or whatever the case may be, you'll have a lot of noise on social about that, about how people need to advocate for said cause, said mission, whatever the case may be. But I don't know, Men's Health Week is the most underwhelming piece. And where does that come from? There's a distinct lack of noise, right? And there's a distinct lack of noise from men about Men's Health Week. So what's the root cause of that? Is there fear of retribution? Should one be standing proudly for the ongoing improved health and mental health of men? Is that a bad thing to talk about? Why is it that men aren't there screaming for it? Where's the fanfare? In fact, I was thinking, because I'm an obscure chap, that we should just have, like something like the AFL parade or something like that, throw it up on screen. So this is what we saw on Men's Health Week. But the truth is we didn't see anything like it. A big fanfare parade, would be kind of ironic because it is a non-event. Men's Health Week is a non-event. So it's interesting because we feel compelled to talk about Men's Health Week because we're both passionately interested in men's health, particularly men's mental health. And yet, we could be talking to ourselves here for, for all intents and purposes. It's kind of weird. It's kind of surreal. We have this Men's Health Week. What have you seen much in the media? Have you seen much going on? What are the highlights? Are people talking about, men's suicide rates and what sort of people are amplifying this? And, how does the week play out? I mean, I'm involved indirectly, sometimes directly, historically, in Anti-Poverty Week in Australia. That's really interesting, right? You get all the charities around talking about the different causes and about homelessness and about domestic violence and about suffering in communities, and all of them get together in a fusion of activity in 1 week. There's a whole bunch of media and coverage around poverty in Australia. So for that particular week, and yet I don't know, it's really underwhelming. It's really underwhelming, and I wonder because it is on men. I mean, this joke has been made before about, I think a comedian made a joke about the WNBA in the States, and, how women don't show up to WNBA games and this kind of stuff. But here, men aren't showing up for Men's Health Week, and men aren't talking to that. Perhaps they don't have a narrative they can get behind. Perhaps there's no message they can drive home. Perhaps they feel unsafe to voice men's rights as human beings to be happy, balanced, of service to others, and proud of who they are. Maybe systemically we've gone too far. Maybe the feeling is there isn't anything to celebrate. Maybe because I certainly don't want to kick off Men's Health Week and talk about how many of us are killing ourselves and the speed with which that is picking up and the time it's taking for people to do absolutely nothing about it. The blame games that continue. We all had a really interesting exercise last night, guys, that we should share with you. There's a thing called the Homer Simpson effect. And we did a review with, how many guys? It doesn't matter. It was a
40.
dozen or
Yeah.
yeah, last night. And we asked them about recent sitcoms that they knew about, and they listed them all. And we talked about, the depiction of male characters in those shows, and then what attributes were they depicted as. Scott's pulling it out now live. Surprise. And what do we got there? Family ties. We
Family,
had
family sitcoms throughout
family
the last
sitcoms. That's
30
right.
years.
Yeah. So we had, The Simpsons. We had, I don't know whether American Guy made it, but Peter Griffin made it.
King of Queens,
Uh,
2.5
King
Men,
of Queens.
Everyone Loves
Yep.
Raymond, Malcolm in the Middle, Ned and Stacey, Home Improvement, Family Ties, Family Guy, Married with Children. What have they all got in common?
And we actually did this as an exercise last night. We asked the guys what they had in common, and we asked them how they depicted men, and we asked how they felt about that. And, we came up with these kinds of words: violent, lazy, toxic, rough, emotionless, hopeless. Pretty consistently through the last 30 years, these have been the labels we've attached to men. So I think it's pretty apt that we talk about that labeling and whether in fact that's systemically the reason for the silence we are suffering, or the suffering that's done in silence during Men's Health Week. I haven't seen videos out there advocating for men. I haven't seen posts that people are getting around with 1 million likes and comments. I haven't seen any such thing this week. And I know there's men's health advocacy groups, but where's the cut through? And the cut through's got to be around men being prepared to voice, or being able to voice, what it is they struggle with. So last night we did just that. We asked these guys how they felt about those labels. And we're going to get to a positive side. Don't worry. I'm certainly not adept at the violin. So, I think for a lot of guys, there was a profound realization that how society views men has played out in their life, has played out in their labels, has played out in their own esteem, has played out in how they've done the world, has played out in their inherent desire to isolate, to be away from it, because the noise ain't great. It's not good PR. Doesn't make you want to walk out of the red carpet and wave to the paparazzi, does it?
Half the men there last night were going through significant custody battles.
Yep.
Half. Does that represent society? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they're just the guys that are reaching out to try and do something better.
And we'd over-index on that for sure at an event like that. Yep.
It's a human issue. It's not a gender issue. We need ways to support one another, regardless of gender, regardless of identity, regardless of what our opportunities are. We need to support each other. We need to find ways in which men can support men and make each other stronger. Stronger for our kids. Like I'm sitting there last night, 14 men discussing the family sitcoms throughout our lives. And to feel what's been projected, to actually sit there and write down on pen and paper what those male role models were, what their characteristics were, what their traits were. It made you feel sick that was the projection of what men are. We packed that up. We felt terrible, all of us. Every single one of us just felt sick in the guts from that. And then we sat down and looked out.
There were tears.
There were tears, genuine tears, right? Because of what's going on for these guys in their life. That's their projection. You know, like I'm filthy at the minute. Yeah. I've just been booted off Facebook because I talked about men's health issues and Men's Health Week, supporting men. Like, what a joke. What a joke, right?
Mhm. It's unwoke to talk about men's health, about men's right.
Do you know what it is, Scotty? It's worse than that. It's not human. It's not human to not support other members of the human race. Like, we all live here together, right?
Yep.
No one person's more important than the other. Last night we jumped onto the opportunity of equality, right? Equality does not mean that we can all do the same thing. Equality means that we've got equal opportunity. Does not mean equal ability. Yeah. There's no such thing as equal ability. We're all built differently. We've all had different experiences. We've all brought different things to the table. And last night, one of the most magical parts of the dinner last night was Michael, who grew up in China with a Chinese background, Chinese values. He brought those to the table, and every single man sitting there was just like, wow, how good is this to hear how a different culture actually works and how that can actually, how do we feel about that? How can we implement that? But the thing that came out of it was middle-aged men are valueless.
Yes, that was the word.
Valueless.
In fact, that was Michael's word.
That was Michael's word. Who are we as men? You know, like I sit here today, we're standing here talking about men and what it means to be a man, and I'm tired of these labels.
Yeah. I was just thinking, there's been an awful lot of videos made, TikToks, whatnot, about why men aren't required, why
Yeah.
men, could be eliminated, how men could be eliminated. I even saw one like, um, it's uh, it's kind of disturbing, um, like gender-based genocide that we're talking about there, um, at the very extreme ends of opinion. But I don't recall. Certainly, men complain about women. I don't know that we sort of call for their elimination. That seems pretty strong to me.
I I think, and it's interesting, right? I'm going to grab this. We sat after we worked out the what the modern sitcoms are and how they're being projected. We then sat down and worked out what positive male traits are. What positive male traits? Now, this is extraordinary. I'm going to share why. Understanding, funny, integrity, passionate, kindness, honest, appreciative, considerate, protective, genuine, respectful, trusting, sacrificial, insightful, fearlessness, productive, joy, loving, gentle, role model, protector, courageous, compassionate, considerate, humble. How do
Seems like
those words, yeah, how do those words feel? Like that for me was, I don't know, Scott, you were sitting there. I asked the men to close their eyes. I asked the men to close their eyes as I said these words, these positive male traits. And what happened? Every man felt those words. Every man recognized themselves in those words. Every man felt better about being himself hearing those words.
mm, and it was. I think I won't say the name, but there was a guy there last night who I felt was incredibly brave in a lot of things that he said and shared, um, and also that he shared that for a lot of his life he's had the ladder up against the wrong wall in terms of how he expresses himself or his frustrations or whatever the case may be. And I remember him saying vividly at this moment, "But that's who I really am. That's who I really am." So I wonder then in Men's Health Week, could we ponder what's the gap between men's identification with this identity, well, with that identity and the labels um, and I won't say it's not expressed, expressions sometimes of these negative elements, and how those negative narratives keep men at bay from number one, participating actively, proudly, and loudly in Men's Health Week, and number two, feeling somewhat stifled that people can't see who they truly are. Like that was one thing that really got me last night is when he said, "But that's who I really, really am, right?" And he's doing a lot of work himself personally to get to that. Um, the world is not going to reward him for that. He will feel that in himself. And yet again, the journey of preparatory work around being and experiencing what's been a very confusing time for men the last 30 years. A very confusing time. Being parented by dominant, patriarchal, misogynistic fathers, and I'm being generalizing here, but I did interview a lot of blokes about this. Into a world where they're tainted, labeled, mocked, and discouraged. Maybe they do that for Men's Health Week. Maybe for Men's Health Week, we get like, how they've got like the Order of Australia medal and stuff like we just recently saw, awards happening on the King's birthday. Maybe we could have the ultimate discouragement awards for men this week and just see who's been discouraged the most. from showing up as they really are. Um, Interesting. I mean, Scott, I mean, I think, you can get angry about this, but I mean, I'd prefer to bring curiosity to this conversation and have us all sit and wonder just how bloody humane or inhumane this is.
Well, it's interesting, and I think we've done an amazing job of strengthening women. I really do. I think it's awesome. And do you know what? I love a strong woman. I really do. I love a woman who, is in her power, that stands strong because of her conviction within herself. Like it's stunning, right? And I'm only going to go back a generation to see how my father was, what he implemented in his life. I'm only going to go back 7 or 8 years in my life to see who I was, to who I am today, to what I'm now gifting to my son. I think we need to be more positive around it. I think I'm looking for solutions, Scotty, because I'm not here to put down. I don't like that.
No,
I want to
no.
call people in, not out, right?
Yep.
Um, because I think as humans, we're much stronger when we walk together. We're much stronger when we have good women, good men. Like if you look at the words on the screen right now, you'd like to hear some of those about women too.
Of course.
And I think it's more about a human trait, but we do have to celebrate one another. I have to celebrate
Mhm.
both the feminine and the masculine. Because when they come together, geez, it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I think, one of the key things that I think I was talking about in our live on Monday, um, there's way too much labeling. There's way too much distance being placed between human beings. There's way too much fear-based, blame-based dialogue that ultimately keeps us apart from each other, keeps
Yeah.
us away from each other. One of the great things about last night's experience, and it was Scott's show, so I think I can talk to it objectively,
Mhm.
is that we are assisting men to start talking about how they feel and with each other, um, and other guys, people in that room were also really good about just sharing some of the steps that have helped them and that are helping them to be more expressive, but more of a lived version of who they believe they really are, more of an authentic version. And those conversations are so critical. And the best we can do at this point is to have them, right? Because if we can have them, then maybe men can ask for what it is that they want and ask for what it is that they need. Because to date, what we are seeing this week, this week is just merely symbolic of what we are seeing across men and men's issues. Do you know what it is? Exactly. Exactly. Crickets. We are seeing and hearing silence, constant, deafening silence. So, men listening to this, I think I can speak on behalf of Scott when I say this. Let's get around each other and talk about how we feel. Not what we should say yet or how we should respond, but how we feel. You see, I can't imagine a world, and I know there's extreme men's groups here that are very anti-women or whatever, but I can't imagine a world where it is normalized to detest such a huge quantum of the population of human beings. To get out and speak negatively, consistently, disparagingly about such a large portion of humanity with no recompense, met with silence and isolation, and sadly, the loss of life. So let's have a good hard think about that. And for men, let's encourage this conversation. Real conversations. Not, yeah, I'm all right, mate. Not, yeah, it'll be right. I'm getting by. None of that shit. None of that shit. How does it feel to be away from your kids? How does it feel to walk into a judicial system that takes a percentage of bad incidents, highly obstructive and violent incidents, and applies it to every single person of that gender? How does it feel to know there is no place to go to be reunited with your family? Nor is there any care, remorse, or consideration for your emotional well-being of such pain. How does that feel? Let's talk to each other about that. We're not here to get by. We're not here to survive. We're here to be freaking happy. I'm leaving a pregnant pause for you there, Mr. Carson.
I'm just
You could burst right through it if you choose, but you don't need to.
I'm just fuming.
Yeah, I mean, and this is where, look, guys, you know, it is easy to get angry about this. I'm freaking angry about it. I'm angry about the fact that I work for clients where standing for men at all would be viewed negatively. Why? Why? Why did my gender become such a redundant, offensive topic for discussion? Why? And blokes, we gotta get together. We've got to find ways to connect. And I know Scott's working real hard on building these mechanisms, and myself and numerous other men are around Scott trying to make this happen in communities around Australia to begin with. Conversations need to be had. We don't need to be talking about how hard it is and playing the violin. We need support from each other to be better versions of ourselves. And in spite of the crossfire, stand tall and believe in who we are and be who we really are, using the words last night. God, I went close to saying his name like 4 times already.
So I want about that because it's something that is really important. Last night we discussed anger, right? We actually talked about anger with men that in their life have had significant anger opportunities, right? Where we've pushed it out because that's all we've known. Last night we broke it down. We looked at ways to be able to put time between incidents and response so that we can actually create better decisions, understanding that the impact of our pain getting projected into others leaves holes. And that's not what we're about. I'm going to share that actually. Like maybe Kenny might enjoy this, but one of the things that I was gifted many years ago was a mentor said to me, he goes, every time you get angry with somebody, I want you to put a nail in the fence. A month went by, there's quite a few nails in the fence in that one area. He goes, I want you to pull out a nail and apologise for that time. The time you dumped that pain into somebody, pulled out a nail. All of a sudden, the fence had holes throughout there. He goes, I want you to patch it over. Fill in the holes. Apologise for everything. And I want you to paint it. He goes, you can't see the holes anymore, can you? No. He goes, but how strong is that paling? How strong are the relationships because you put holes in it? You need to make better decisions about where you put your pain. I'm like, ooh, that hit home, right? So last night, we had a place where we could put our pain safely, open it up and actually explore it. Something that I, as a man, didn't have until recently is that opportunity to have a place to do that. And you can't just go anywhere to do it. You've got to have safe places. They're not your friends that you dump it onto, because everybody says, problem shared is a problem half. Not true. Problem shared is quite often a problem double, because now your mate's carrying that weight. Now your mate's carrying that, and he doesn't have the tools to be able to deal with it. We need to create more places for men to actually be able to be safe to open up these things without judgment. And without judgment, judgment's such an important part of life. You need judgment to make decisions. But judgment without judgment, to sit in actual honor of somebody else as they work through life. Life encompasses all sorts of growth opportunities, so many of them painful.
Mm-hmm.
That is the gift of life. But what we need to be careful of is to not project our version of events onto somebody else. That's sitting without judgment, just listening, asking questions. I don't know, Scotty. I keep hearing about all these domestic violence opportunities that that $3.2 billion in Australia is spent on anti-domestic violence campaigns, and that men are bad, when domestic violence has halved in the last 8 years, and we're still getting smashed with it. I'd like to see more investment in actual programs that actually make a difference, not talk at us.
Well, it was really interesting, and I felt a bit affronted last night that we were talking about anger. But I think it's poignant that we were talking about anger last night, because anger is just merely bottled up pain, looking for a way to escape.
Yeah.
And it's important that we address anger with men, because the recognition that they have of what's festering inside, what's going on. And last night's event was an opportunity for the valve to be released on that, in a safe way where they could be heard and felt and supported by other men, not in ways that are obstructive, not in ways that are, as Scott says, are gifting people pain. So, I think without question, we're on the right pathway in those discussions. And wouldn't it be great for men to have a men's health week where they felt comfortable advocating for what the right outcomes for men are?
I'm just smiling at this, right? And I'm thinking to myself, who's going to listen to this?
Yeah, me too.
Who really cares enough to actually take the time and listen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. Me too.
And to me, that's sad. It's sad that we don't take the time to listen and appreciate and understand one another. Like last night we sat there with men, some of which we've met before, some of which we haven't, and to hear their stories made me a better person and made me more empathetic towards others, because I appreciate their stories.
Yep.
I now look at Chinese people with a completely different mindset based upon the courage of Michael sharing his story and the value system of which he grew up in. How he grew up with two families living in one house. And I'm not talking about your brother and sister, I'm talking grandparents, parents, children. Two families living in the one house together to survive. Wow. The respect and the consideration and the empathy they must have had for each other. They would have to listen to each other. And how we talked about the values. It was just like, I went to a synagogue not long ago, a week and a half ago, where I got to listen and learn about Jewish faith. Not everything, but I got to hear their song. I got to see them celebrate, men and women. I got to hear them share their concerns. I got to listen. How do I feel about the community? Oh, there we go. Get rid of that. How do we feel about the community when these things are happening? We're more empathetic when we take the time to listen and understand each other. You know, I don't know. Scotty, I'm actually perplexed today. Like, if I'm being honest, I'm really perplexed about. I'm not a smart man. I'm just a man just having a go at doing something different. I'm just a man that just values being a man, values other men, values our story, values the fact that we have safe places to actually work through things so that we don't project our pain upon one another. Unfortunately, I see too much of it in our society. I was part of that problem until I found my inner smile, which emerged from my darkness, which gifted me the opportunity to sit with others. Dream of a world where we choose love over fear, you know. But in order to get that love, we've got to sit and listen.
And I think the takeaway for me is that, you know, we hear, in fact, last night thematically, it came out again and again and again and again and again. Not good enough. So here's the rub for me. We need together, unhappy men, silent men, make for a pretty shitty society. Not men in general, unhappy men, silent men. I don't believe that the current state of affairs is generating happy women. I don't think it is at all. So whatever we're doing to this point, it's not working. Statistically speaking, we know that this is true. No matter what statistics you want to throw at it, every single social statistic is telling us that the way we are relating to each other is not working. And so we have to ask ourselves the question, what kind of world do we want to live in? You know, men can get better. Sure, absolutely. We can evolve into something very different than our fathers, and the vast majority of us want to do that. Beyond the vast majority, almost all of us, I would say, want to do that. We want to evolve into something different, and we're struggling with what that definition is. We've certainly heard about what it's not, and we continue to hear about what it's not. But we need to encourage each other in finding that. There's a great deal of women who don't want to be like their mothers. Okay, let's accept that. That's fair enough. How do we get them to a place where they are happy in themselves, that they define what that is, not what it isn't? So we're constantly talking about people being better. Can men be better? For sure. Can women be better? Damn straight. Can society be better? Yeah, plenty of opportunities. So my underlying message is, let's get around each other, regardless of gender. Let's be humans with a bit of heart and a bit of care and a whole world of curiosity, because I don't know about you guys, but I haven't seen a sporting team yet that's had a coach on the sidelines telling every single player on that team that they are shit, they are good for nothing, they are worthless, and they're just not good enough, and expecting them to win. Don't get it. There's no logic. Don't understand it. So let's stop it, huh? Pretty somber mood for a Scots and Socks, but hey, thus is the state of men's health and men's mental health and Men's Health Week, and the great shame of a non-event that it is indeed. You want to close that out, Scott?
Like most men, I've got nothing to say.